Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Power Cave. My name is Nathan Adlin, and today I'm going to be bringing you powerful deals, get it, Power Cave, for these products. And these products are part of an entire category of mobile power. These are power banks that you'll be able to take just about anywhere, and solar panels and more. And today we have special deals for you. So you're going to be able to directly talk to me as we go through these items, and I'll be able to directly talk to you. And at the same time, you'll be able to look down at the page and you'll be able to click a link. You'll also be able to look at Amazon and you'll be able to get these items, which are on special today. There you go. There's the opening pitch. You like that? Okay, so let's continue because we're going to be talking about this company here, which is Ampace. Now, this is a company that has built the most batteries for drone tech in the world. Cars, drones, phones, you name it. They've done batteries for these organizations, these companies, these groups. So they're known in over 41 million households, markets, businesses, and what have you. And then on top of that, 29 countries have worked directly with Ampace for power solutions. So good start, right? All right, let's talk about their very first battery today. And this is sort of the queen bee of all the batteries that it's here. This is the big one. And this is also the unit that we're going to be talking about really for a majority of this. There's other batteries which are smaller, hence slightly less time to talk about. Okay, let's continue. So this is the Andes 1500. Now, the cool thing about the Andes 1500, just like these other units, is that it has been severely tested in remarkably cold and hot climates. We're talking about -4 degrees Fahrenheit all the way up to 113 degrees Fahrenheit. This has been tested, but there's more. And that's because they've actually taken these units, actually all three of these, up to over 7,000 meters elevation. That's right, to the top of Mount Everest. And they actually were able to power a base camp using these batteries in extreme cold and extreme conditions at extremely high elevation. 7,000 meters, that is like over 20,000 feet. That is higher than a lot of aircraft fly. Okay, so I just wanted to start with that just to let you know that these things are really rugged and they're capable of running in very cold and hot conditions pretty much everywhere off grid. And that's really the whole point of this, the 1500. Now, this unit here has a lot of the components that you're going to see on these other machines, all right? But as the large portable power bank, this is the most, right? It has the most power and it has the most outlets. And that's including, let's start in the back, 4 AC outlets, okay? And then we can go to the front of the device and you're going to see 4 USB-A outlets and 2 USB-C outlets. In addition, there's 3 DC outlets at the bottom. That's including this large DC outlet, which is essentially what you would use for your car plug, which used to be the old push-in cigarette lighter. For those of you who are old enough to remember those things. Right, so this has all of those plugs available for it. And this is how the system works. So I'm going to show you how it turns on. As I scoot you a little bit forward, you get even more of the beautiful face. And there's the power button right here. I'm going to turn that on. Now, what you're going to see over here on this side is the amount of hours capable of this unit. This is fully charged 99. And then over here, see if I have my finger in the right place, it's at 100%. So that's 100% power. If I plug this in, that'll start dropping, hours will start dropping, and thus the battery is powering. And then over on this side, it's showing your input and your output. So let's say you have a solar panel plugged into it, or let's say you have shore power, which is also AC power plugged into it, or DC power plugged into it. Yes, that's right. 3 different ways you can power this. It'll show here input, or if you have something plugged into it, it'll show output. It'll show what's going out of the unit, right? Makes sense. This is capable of 2,500 kilowatts of power. And it has the amp boost mode, which goes up to 3,600 kilowatts. So here's an example of what that can power. Something like a skill saw that you plug into it, or a power drill, yes, for work sites, or a refrigerator. A lot of refrigerators can run as low as 300 kilowatts. This thing is way, way, way over that, meaning you can actually run that for quite a while using this. And we're going to get to that in just a second. Before I go any further, I wanted to talk to you about how you power this thing. Remember, I just mentioned that you have 3 different forms. Well, in the back, this is where those 3 different forms of powering go. Yep, back here. I'm gonna lift this just a little bit. There we go. Now, on one side, you're going to clearly see that there is a plug for your regular AC. So you plug that into your house. I call it shore power. It's because I'm old, that's what we call it. But also there's another plug for solar, and then there's the plug for DC. DC essentially is your car, right? Now, these 3, by the way, that's super cool. Didn't know if you knew that was cool, but it is cool. It's awesome. But here's the cool part on top of that. How long do you think this takes to charge one of these things if you plug it into your wall? Any guesses? You're wrong. Because you're probably saying, oh, it's got to be like 6 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. And with older units like this, I would say you were correct. But that's not the case here. So I'm going to let you stew on that. And I'm going to see whether or not in the comments you guys figured it out. But before I move on, I did want to talk about a couple other things with this battery before I tell you the sale price, okay? Now, this does give you a couple things. It comes with, here we go, I'm gonna move that out of the way, and I'm gonna show you these cords. So there's your DC cord, and it comes with an AC cord. Here we go. Right, and your solar cord. Now later on, we're going to talk about some of these other devices because they do come with some cords as well, or you can actually plug in a different way with one of these, and I'll get to that in a minute. Later on, in addition, we're also going to be talking about bundling, meaning you can buy one of these with one of these. These are the solar panels. Currently, they're all folded up. I will unfold them and talk about them a little bit later, and they will be able to work with this unit. Okay, so before we go any further, I just wanted to see, and here we go. Anybody figured it out yet? Not 8 hours, but that's a really good guess. 1 hour, actually less than 1 hour. You plug this in, and if you use the app, you're able to go into A-Boost mode. This is able to charge that quickly. We will talk about the app in just a second, but before we do, I wanted to tell you about pricing. And that's because this is on sale today. Oh, before I go there, you may have noticed my hands have been changing color while I've been holding this, and that's because there's special lighting on top. I'm gonna show you how this works on the other product a little bit later, and I'm going to use the iPad to do it. You'll see what I mean in a minute. See, I'm making you stay tuned later on for more. Okay, so this unit, which is capable of powering 2,500 kilowatts, also up to 3,600 in A-Boost mode, which is really good like if you have a skill saw or something that takes up a ton of power and goes past your peak. If it's being drained really hard, you know, like you hit a stud or whatever, it will be able to handle it, right? So having that, and something that is super quiet, by the way, this thing can sit next to your head as you're sleeping at night. I've had one of these do this, or a similar one, and I didn't hear it. It's because it's under 30 decibels. There's a fan in here that's keeping everything cool, but it's super quiet. So, what can you do with this, by the way? Aside from a work site, which is what I've already talked about, and a great campsite unit, although very big, right? Also motorhomes, and if you're off the grid, you can use one of these. I actually know people who use almost solely solar power mixed in with batteries when they are on an open range ranch and they have no power leads whatsoever that go into the ground. They just need to use Mother Nature to get their power. And they can go years by using these. What do I mean by that? Well, One of these can actually last 6,000 cycles. They tested the heck out of these things. Let me explain. A cycle is essentially when you fully charge it and you fully discharge it, that's a cycle. And it can do 6,000 of them. That's like over 10 years of life. And that's if you used it every day, all the way up and all the way down. That is a very long time, far longer than a lot of the competition, than pretty much most of the competition. So super capable battery, very quiet. You can use it just about anywhere. It is rather big, so it's got a lot of outlets around it, as you can see. But in addition, it is very capable and strong, and it has this really cool lighting, which is kind of catching my eye and drawing me away from you. I apologize. Shiny objects just make me look away. So one final thing before we talk about price. I know I'm stretching it out. This has something very cool called pure sine technology. Now, this is an ideal unit to have at home, because I've already talked about, having it on the range and you put it in a motorhome or whatever, right, instead of a generator, which is really loud. One of these can also sit at your home. You plug your computer into it, right? And if there's a blackout, and in every state in the United States, and in most countries around the world, you're going to have them. You're going to have bad weather, you're going to have earthquakes, tornadoes, tsunamis, you name it, and that will kill your power. But if you have one of these, it'll immediately kick on the power within 20 milliseconds, and your computer will have uninterrupted power with that pure sine technology, which means that instead of it having this really bumpy power that comes in, which by the way, old batteries like these used to do, this one means that it won't scramble your computer trying to get power into it, which is huge. And that's for all devices across the board. That is part of what tech is in this, which makes it unique. Other devices are just giving you raw power. It's really bad for your computer and it can fry them. This will not happen with these. So you can use this as a backup at home and pretty much like leave it alone, let it do its thing. And then you can use your app, right? And see what this is doing when you're not around. And you'll be able to tell whether or not it's functioning, how much power is in there, which outlet is working. By the way, there are buttons here to turn on and off the different DC and AC outlets. That way you don't have them on if you don't need them, which means extra draw, which is an intelligent thing. And there are little buttons here, and there's a little button like right over here. Makes sense, right? If you don't need the outlet on, why leave it on? So real quickly, yes, 1 hour. I don't know if I said that earlier, but 1 hour to charge this thing off AC. So here's the pricing. Drum roll, please. Roll that screen so I can absolutely make sure that I have the right number. Normally this goes for $1,399.99, basically $1,400, which is a decent price. But today, $499, right? $499 today for the 1500. That's huge. If you're wondering, by the way, before I move on to the next device, this is the biggest and heaviest of all the things here. So it weighs just under 37 pounds. So there is a little bit of heft to it, but fear not, because I'm going to show you lighter devices in a moment. But before I do, I'm going to stack something on top of this. Right? You guys came for like dinner and a show, right? I'm going to give you the show. So here we go. This, although it looks a lot like the 1500, is actually not. This is an extra battery portable power station built by Ampace. Tested just like these other ones, has a lot of the components that these other ones have, but it's really built for one thing and one thing only. And that is to give you extra power for your device. So this, and I'm going to bring it up here, and then I'm going to spin it around and turn it on. Alrighty. There we go. See that? All right, right there. Okay. That screen, just like the other one, is pretty much the same thing. It's showing you input, it's showing you output, it's also showing you how much time you have and how much power is in this battery. What it doesn't have are a bunch of outlets and whatnot because it's just a pure battery. And this one, I'm gonna stand up here because I think it's easier than playing peekaboo. There we go. And this one, well, the cool news is you can actually bundle these, right? So yeah, you have 2,500 watts coming out of this, 2,500 kilowatts, sorry, and you can hook these up in a series, putting out a total of over 11 kilowatt hours of power. To put that into perspective, you guys remember the old Nissan Leaf, right? Electric car? Well, their early batteries were between like 20 and 30 kilowatt hours. So this is like 1/3 the power of a full electric car. That's a ton of power. So if you have a series hooked up, just a couple of these to the 1500, then you're going to have tons of power. You can power a home. Most homes in the United States run on around 10 to 30 kilowatts in a day. And if you're in an emergency and you need to run certain things, a refrigerator or occasionally a microwave, hot plate or something like that, having extra power is very helpful. So how does it work? How does this system work? Well, top opens, and this is part of the secret sauce. Here we go. Big honking cord. Look at that. That is manly. This cord is all you need to hook up to the 1500. And it does it in an interesting way. So first of all, you're going to see up here that this has a unique plug-in, and you're going to plug it in, I believe. Here we go. Now I always get this upside down because I'm that guy who will walk up to a plug somewhere and try to plug something in and then totally have it messed up because I don't pay attention to where the plugs are supposed to go. And that's just me. Let's start with the bottom. Here we go. And around we go. Now if you look, this is the 1500 on the bottom. There we go. That is the port that you put this into. And down here, you get a shot of my bald head. You're welcome, by the way. There we go. And that just plugs right in. And then you spin this around. And you put this in like so. Sorry. Oh, no wonder. Remember I was saying upside down? That's what I was doing. There we go. Now it's plugged in. So now it's working like a series. What it's basically doing is it's boosting the power that's going into the 1500, but it's not increasing the power that's going into the 1500. So it's still putting out between 2,500 and 3,600 kilowatts, depending on your needs, but you have the extra storage here. So you can burn and burn and burn electricity for a very long time. And you notice how I got confused earlier? Well, that's because of this. This is the plug that you would plug in to another battery, and hence another one and another one, up to 7 of these. So it works the same way. It has the same tech. It has a sine wave tech. It has the ability to be seen on the app, and it has the very, very quiet fan inside that goes 30 decibels or even lower. And in addition, it has this handy case on the top. Very cool, right? Well, normally these would run around $599. But today it's going to be $499. That's right. The battery, the extra battery for portable power solutions is going to run $499. Pretty cool, right? Now, let's say that you guys need something a little bit smaller. How about a lot smaller? Well, in just a minute, as I slowly put this thing away, it's gonna take just a sec, I'm going to introduce you to my little friend who's right behind me. And the cool part about that is that this device that I'm about to show you, there we go, is super compact and super capable. And just as importantly, kind of cute. All right, but before I do that, actually, I should probably quickly read your comments. Let's see here. On a battery. My girlfriend has a Nissan Leaf. Awesome. You know that one of my kids had a Nissan Leaf in high school, a used one. It was actually really good. Okay. This is what I was talking about. This is the Ampace 300. You see that? I'm going to turn this on for you before I sit down. And on we go. There we go. Nice little close-up. And I'm able to hold it like this, not because I'm remarkably strong, although I am. It's because this thing weighs a little over 8 pounds. Basically, as much as a domestic kitty cat. This is the most compact of all of these, still putting out good wattage and extremely rugged. This strong metal handle in the back. You can clearly see where the AC goes here. Now I found out that this can actually be hooked up to this USB-C right here, so you can see that. There's actually an adapter that'll allow this to be hooked up to solar panels as well, and DC. They work the same way, and so that is also something that you can get as an accessory with this. By the way, once again, I mentioned bundling. We will talk about that at the end, or near the end of this broadcast. Okay, so the Andes 300, let's talk about it. It is very lightweight, as I mentioned. It is very portable. And the cool thing about one of these, I actually had a small motorcycle, let's just say, way back in the day, and it had these plastic sort of fiberglass bins on the side, and they were big enough for a helmet, kind of, but they weren't that big, right? And I needed to hold stuff in them, and I never could figure out what I wanted to put in there. Had I had these, I so would have done that, because this is really cool for camping. So being able to take a couple of these, imagine 2 of them, which would be good for balance, inside a motorcycle compartment here and here, means that I have a lot of power running to my campsite. And to give you an example, something like this is really good for running small video games, powering phones, iPads, computers, and you can even power small appliances, small output appliances. Now you are talking about something that puts out, you know, over 300 watts like this, and it's super quiet, and it can, just like the big one, be installed at home and run your computer. And just like the big one, if power drops off, this can just kick on and keep on going. And it uses that pure sine technology, meaning that you're not spiking your computer with power, as this is just simply doing its job. Okay, so let's go over what it has in terms of plugs. There are 2 AC plugs here, and I'm counting 2 USB-A's and 1 USB-C cord, and then over here is that DC plug. A lot of you guys still have the old DC plugs that you hook up to your car, and many of those like have the little dongles that you can plug into those for your phone, for a toy, for a radar detector, for radios, whatever. You can do that right here with this one. These are super cool because they can do a lot with very limited size and extremely light weight. This is remarkably light. This thing really does feel like you could kind of use it to punch a hole in a tent if you had to. It's really beefy. Just like the big one, you do have the buttons here for the AC and DC. And these buttons, once again, if you're not using it, you simply turn them off. And that way, you're not putting any power to those outlets, which saves you a little bit. And just like the big one, you can go onto the app and you can monitor what this little guy is doing. These are super useful for people who do what I do on the side, which is video production. So if you're charging a phone or a camera or lighting equipment or a drone, and you need something super light that has good power, that's really quick to recharge. Super quick to recharge, less than an hour to 80%. I think it's like 50 minutes gets you to 80%, pretty much get to an hour and it'll be fully charged. Plug it into your car, super fast. And like these other ones here, between 3 and 5 hours will get you a full charge as long as the sun is right with solar panels. This one does work with the 100-watt solar panel. That's the little one. We'll cover that in a second. So, very good for outings, very good for light camping, great for photography and smaller things like that, and super lightweight, great in the case of an emergency as well. So, how much would one of these run? Well, I know from previous experience that one of these runs about 250 bucks. That's usually what they go for. But not today. Today, this is one of the biggest deals out here because this today is $99.99, less than 100 bucks. Once again, $99.99. That is 60% off today, right? Once again, these things are like normally 250 bucks. So that's a super big value for a very capable unit that has been tested just like these other ones in extreme climates at high and low elevations, and extremely cold and extremely hot. It has all the same tech, really, as these other ones. Obviously just a smaller battery, but hey, that's pretty impressive. And once again, the same screen too, right? So it has all the same input and output information, also has the same timing, and it has the same percentage in terms of right there telling you exactly how much power remains. I really like these little guys for people who want to get away and do some overlanding and have a really light power source. This is great, but, and before we go to the next one, I will look at some more questions here, but there is another one, which is really the middle child and my personal favorite amongst all of these. And I'll tell you why, because I have stories. I have lots of stories, but I have a story about this one. So before I go there, let's have a quick look and see if anybody's, oh wow, a lot of people here. Thank you guys very much for coming in and having, yes, 300. This would be perfect for the beach. I didn't even mention that. And I live by the beach. Oh my goodness. And in fact, I'm going to tell you about Redondo Beach, which is pretty much where I live. But that's going to be with the next device. Thank you guys for chiming in. I do appreciate it. Let's move on, shall we? All right, so we covered the little guy who's on sale once again. $99.99. Massive bargain. And then we're going to talk about this one. And this is by far my favorite of all the devices. And that's because it's sort of the best of both worlds. It gives you tons of power. It has a lot of outlets, and it is super useful. And I'm going to show you some of the components that this has, that the big one also has. And I'll be able to show you, even with the app, how it works. All right? So put on those seat belts. Here we go. Now, first of all, I'm going to turn it on. There we go. And just like the big one, it has that large screen. Same information, basically same exact screen, right? And like the big one, it also has a light. And I haven't talked about that yet. So see that band up top? That is the light. Let me show you how it works. Let me get my finger on the right spot. There we go. All right, so I'm going to turn it on. And there you go. So that is the first setting, just regular light. Second setting should be a brighter light. Third setting should be a strobe. And finally, there we go. And that's SOS. The big one has it as well. And that, let me tell you why this is cool. I had a device very similar to this from a few years back, and I've actually used it quite a bit. My other job is going out and doing photography and videos and whatnot with cars and trucks, and I have to camp out often. So when I was camping, I had a device similar to this, but older, and the tech wasn't quite as good. And I had a solar panel, and I had that light, and I had essentially this type of power. This is the 600, by the way. This is the Ampace Andy 600, if I forgot to say that, because I was so excited. And it is such a powerhouse. When I was in the open and I had 600 watts and I could repower it throughout the day, I was able to run a campsite. And that campsite consisted of a plate because I wasn't allowed to use a fire. so I couldn't make a fire at this campsite, and I had to stay there several days. So I had a hot plate. It worked, right? And I also used it to power up my phone, my computer, my camera equipment, and sometimes I actually had to use it to power other items like a few flashlights to get me through the night. And then I realized that one had this little tiny dinky, much smaller light up here. And I'm glad I figured that out, because one day I had to go back home. I was on this dark highway. Moab, Utah is like in the middle of pretty much nowhere. So this long snaking road along the desert, no lights. I blew a tire on the trailer that I was using to tow that motorcycle, right? And so I had this and I put it on the side of the road, and I turned on the strobe, and that was able to tell people who were approaching at very, very high speed, hey, there's somebody here. And it probably saved my life. I kid you not. That actually happened, and it was a device very similar to this, but not as advanced. During the day, that same device had, I think it was like a 120 watt solar panel, but it wasn't very efficient. But it still was able to get this thing pretty much, or that thing, powered to where I could just leave it and get it nice and powered through the day, and then use it at night, and then back and forth and back and forth. And honestly, over the course of several days, it was great. I had power in the middle of nowhere. Now, let's talk about this, because, as I said, it's very similar to the big one, but it's compact, similar to the small one, right in between. This one has two AC outlets that you can clearly see here, and then I'm counting two USB-A's and two USB-C ports right here. In addition, there's 3 different DC outlets, and one of those is the car outlet right over here. So having that is awesome. And then in the back, and I'm gonna flip open this little compartment for you here, and boop, open just like the big one. You're able to charge this directly with either solar power or AC or DC. Once again, AC, plug it into your wall or shore power. DC, basically your car. So you're able to plug this thing in, and you're able to power it rapidly. And we'll get to that in just a second. Okay, now, what about how this particular unit and the big unit react to being used when you are playing with the app? What app am I talking about? Allow me to explain. Now we have a small iPad here, and this iPad is currently dialed into the app. There we go. See that? And you are able to access whichever ones you have. In this case, there's all 3 here. So I am going to open up this one. Okay, and it's now connected. And as you can see, it already tells me that it's at 80%. And AC output, DC out, it tells me all the outputs. Once again, you could do this from anywhere with the app. It just talks directly to you. But let's say I want to change what the lighting's doing. So if you see the lighting up there, I want it to change a little bit and do something kind of funky and cool. All right, well, I'm gonna go to ambient lighting, and I'm going to go to, let's do sparkling. Yeah, sparkling. And I'm gonna put this here aside for a moment, and whoops, I have to engage. Hit OK. I'm old, I miss these things. There we go. And now, as you can see, it's got some cool stuff going on with the lighting. Now, let me tell you why this is cool, aside from the fact that it looks cool. And that is that something like this would be an awesome tool for people who are, let's say, throwing a party. Call them a rave in the desert if you want. Or, as my friends at St. Catherine's, that's in Redondo Beach, what they would do with something like this is they would power speakers. They have an annual Greek festival, and that would be ideal for something like this. Instead of having a bunch of really loud and smelly generators, one of these can power a couple loud speakers, a couple of these, ba-boom. You can actually power the whole site. That's what's really cool about these. You're able to power intense lighting, intense sound, no problems, because it's at 600 watts, which is more than plenty. And once again, just like the other ones, it has been tested, extremely low temperatures, extremely hot temperatures, way up way up at 7,000 meters. And it's proven to be very, very robust. In addition, it has the sine wave technology, so you can plug it in at home using this device as emergency power, but also to plug into your computer to make sure that you have backup power. So it kind of does it all, just in a much smaller package, and obviously not as much wattage as the big one. But you see, having something like this means that you're paying a little bit less. So let's talk about that. How much do you think this is? 700 bucks? 500 bucks? Normally, it's $449.99. That's the regular price. But today, I hope you guys have had, put your seatbelt on, $199. I'll say it again, today, on sale, $199. Go ahead and look around. Should be able to click right where you are and check out what's going on there in terms of all the stuff that's available, because it's all here. And once again, we're not done. We still have a lot to cover, including bundles, okay, which brings everything together. Now, speaking of bringing everything together, okay, once again, $199. This particular unit actually has another special little trick, and that's its friend. What do I mean by that? I mean a bag. That's right. I'm gonna put this back, and I'm going to grab its friend, and that is the AmpAce carrying case, specifically for the 600. I guess you could put the 300 in here as well, but I would probably recommend the 600. And this, it's really cool because there's a couple things going on here that you may not realize. It's not just a regular bag. They actually have used some extremely high quality materials in order to make this bag. It's including a really awesome zipper, frankly. This thing is beefy. But the materials in here, this is a PEVA bag, and it is rated with the IPX6 water rating, meaning that it can actually take like a blast of water and keep things dry. In addition, everything here is padded. Almost every square inch of this has a thick padding, which is good for the device, but also good for things that you put in it. So, as an example, if you put something up here, which is really ideal for like SD cards or smaller items, cords, coiling up a bunch of cords, including this, you're able to protect them with this zipper top. And then you have these side pockets, which would be really good for like a bottle, or extra camera equipment would actually fit in pretty good on both of these sides, but there's more, because you have the front pocket, which is large enough to hold a variety of different things, I think including a sandwich. Look, you don't get my size without talking about sandwiches, right? So there is actually quite a bit of space there as well. But the main thing is its ability to hold the 600 inside of it. So if you have to go off the beaten path and you need enough space in your bags, you don't want to carry the 600 around in your bags, why not have its own bag like this? You pop it in there, you're able to carry it around, it's all padded, and I'm going to show you in a second how fashionable it is, because I am the model of fashion. I know, you guys saw the bald head and you knew it immediately, right? And the other thing is that, which I can appreciate with a bag like this, is that let's say you're going to a gig and you have to shoot, in my case, photography, video, whatever. It looks a lot more professional when you have something like this. You know what I mean? So before I tell you the price, let's look at how it looks. I'm going to become a fashion icon right now. Put that over my shoulder. This is padded too, by the way. Now, normally this bag goes for $59.99. However, today, the AmpAce bag for the 600 is going for $39.99. Once again, $39.99 for the bag. Pretty cool, right? Okay, let's look at a couple questions right before I jump onto the next element, and that is solar panel. Solar panel, solar power from solar panel. You know what I meant? I know what I meant too. Okay, let's get on a little bit further here. See what we got. Yes, you can plug this into iOS or anything else, really. It'll charge any type of phone. As long as it has power cord, basically, you can plug it into any of these. That's answering one of the questions. And, yep, the moderator already took care of it. Look at that. And I'm just gonna take this phone, which has closed, and put it over here, and I'm gonna continue, and hopefully I can read it later on. Okay, let's talk about solar panels, shall we? Here we go. This is the Ampace 100 watt solar panel. And they did something super cool with solar panels, which sometimes they can be floppy, sometimes they can be super rigid. This is sort of a mix of the two to make it compact, easy to carry. This thing does not weigh very much, and at the same time, very rugged. So the top here, this is magnetically coupled, okay? So there's a magnet here, so they just pop, click together. And then in addition, you have this bag, which holds your outlet cord. So you can plug this in to your battery and charge your battery. This can charge other things as well, but really it's meant for charging your batteries, right? In addition, this unit, the 100 watt, does have its own separate bag that it comes with, which is part of the deal. But because we wanted to show this thing super quick, I wanted to do it without the bag. And one of the reasons why is because I wanted you guys to see how big this is. But before I do that, I wanted to show you this here. See this? This is a bit of a kickstand. Now normally what you would do is you would set this up like so, and then you would open this up horizontally. I'm about to open it up vertically. Now the reason why you would open it up horizontally with the kickstand out is that it would lean, and then you want to capture the sunlight as it goes through the sky and have that solar panel always focused on the sun as it moves, right? From east to west, getting the maximum amount of power. Why is that important? Well, the efficiency of these panels is way beyond other panels. This has monocrystalline silicon that it's using in the solar cells. That is the most efficient material in this particular market. That means that you're getting about 23% efficiency from the sunlight. Let me explain what that is as I open this. I'm gonna set this down here onto the floor. There we go. And that's about I'm 6'1". So that's about how big it goes. And remember, it goes horizontally. But these crystals, well, they're under a very hard surface that is rugged. I wouldn't say hit it with a hammer, but it is actually very strong, and it's built to be durable. So you can take it into the wild. You can take it into various places where it can be well used. The whole point of this is to be super light, right? Conduct electricity as efficiently as possible, giving you as much electricity back. So 23% efficiency essentially means that the light that's coming to the panels, these panels right here, as it enters all that sunlight, 23% of that is turned into power to your device, to your power station. Normally, these things are around between 10, 15, maybe 17%. A couple of them hit about 23% on this. Much, much more efficient. And that is once again because of the monocrystalline silicon application of these crystals here, which solar panels, the tech is constantly changing. And these are some of the most modern ones. Now this does weigh about 10 pounds. So it is relatively light, water resistant, and easy to place just about anywhere. 100 watts works really well with some of the smaller devices here. You can also pair these up with other solar panels, by the way. It doesn't have to just sit alone. But alone with one of the smaller ones, you'll be able to use it at a campsite and power your campsite, which is really good, or in an emergency, which is great. So, question, how much does one of these cost? Well, normally they're $299, but today it's a special deal, $249 for this unit. which is super good. Now, before I move on, just so you guys know, I right now won't be able to answer any questions because the phone has decided not to talk to me. It's the phone's fault. And we're going to move on to the next solar panel, the big one, the 200-watt one. This one. This is the big one. This is the big enchilada. It's certainly, I mean, the other one was 100 watts, this is 200 watts. So this is just far more powerful, and it feels like it is. It certainly isn't small. Now, this unit has a very different type of setup, and it is something that will work well with the larger power stations. 200 watts, it's a lot of power coming in. Up here, we have the zipper, which has these cords. These cords don't take up that much space, so this pouch could actually hold quite a few other things. Keep that in mind. And just like the other one, it has the kickstand right here. And I'm making a mess of this poor table. So here's the kickstand, right? Very, very cool, because something this big, frankly, needs two kickstands, and it has it. There's the other kickstand. So when you spread this out horizontally, and bear in mind I can't do that on camera because this is only capturing this much, and well, when I show you how big this is, you'll understand. Okay, and I might as well do that now. Here we go. This, well, I am 6'1", so I'm gonna put this on the floor down there. By the way, same setup with the monocrystalline setup and everything else, just more power because there's more size. How much more size, you say? Well, all right, here we go. Up we go. There. I'm completely off frame and I'm way above my head in so many ways. And this is huge. More area, more wattage. I mean, it makes sense, right? So this thing is ideal for people who camp, but like seriously camp. So perhaps they're going overlanding, which is using a vehicle more often than not to go off the beaten path and go places where there's no shore power and they need real power. This is ideal. Or let's say you live in a place that has a lot of brownouts and blackouts. Oh, like any state in the United States at this point. So something like this, you could essentially open it up, use it on your big batteries, and you can power things in your house. And this will help power the battery. And you can put these together in a bundle. And we'll talk about that bundle super soon, but before we do, let's talk about pricing. Any guess on pricing? I would look at the phone, but phone isn't on right now. And so I'm gonna guess. You guys are saying 700, 800. I heard 800 over there. Well, you're wrong. Normally, it's $599.99, but today, this is going for $449. $449, ladies and gentlemen, just today. There you go. This thing is such a beast, it's so big. It's awesome. All right, never thought I'd be this excited about solar power. What are you gonna do? But it's super green power. Cool thing about solar is, well, it's free. Yes, it won't solve everything. Solar power is definitely something that some people were like, oh yeah, you know, it's gonna do a lot. And some people are like, it's not gonna do anything. I would agree. It does a lot for people who camp. It does a lot for people who are off the grid. And it can do a lot for people who are in an emergency. And that's the most important part. Everything else, it's whatever you guys say. I'm very neutral. Let's see the comments here. Yeah, so we're doing pretty good. Looks like you guys are out there. Thank you very much for sending me some nice messages and hearts. I love those. So let's go back here and we're gonna talk about bundles. Up we go. I'm not as young as I used to be. Okay, we're back to the 1500. This is, once again, the big enchilada of the whole thing. There you go, you can see the front of it. So there are 3 different bundles I want to talk about today, and let's start off with the 300. That's this one right here. And the bundle here is the 300 plus the 100 watt solar panel. Normally, this bundle would be $499, but today it's 20% off at $399. Once again, that's this bundle. That's this 100 watt solar panel and this power bank. Cool, right? All right, let's move on to the next one. The next one is the Ampace Andes 600, my personal favorite, with the 200 watt solar panel, the big guy. I was talking about this earlier, right? Something like this paired with something like this, whew, really good for people who need to get away. Okay, so what does it cost normally to have the 600 paired with the 200 watt solar panel? Normally it's $999 for these two. However, today it is $649. Once again, the pairing of the 200 watt solar panel and the 600 Andes is $649. That's a 35% discount. Pretty cool, right? Wow. Makes me want to make a call. Hey. Let's go to the last one. Now the last one is for this, the 1500. Now remember, this is the one that really does provide the most power, and it is built to work with houses, RVs, large campsites, work sites. When you're off the grid, even living in a home, something like this can actually power a full home, especially if you plug it in and you use the battery I showed you earlier, the extension. So what does one of these cost with the big 200 watt solar panel? Now normally this would cost $1,799. Once again, $1,799 is the normal price for this bundled with that. With the 1500 bundled with the 200 watt solar panel. But today, $949. I'll say it again, these two, $949 for the bundle. That's 47% off. There you have it, wow. Okay, so let's recap a little bit, right? Because you guys asked for it, but before we do, I'm gonna quickly check and see if there's any comments. Looks like we're about the same as we were before. So let's go a little bit further. Now, for those of you who are curious, once again, Andes 1500, that's this one, the main one here, charges in about 55 minutes. If you plug it into AC, powers up to 2400 watts, but it has that 3600 watt A-boost mode. Really good to use with power tools. And it can last more than 15 years. Now that's bearing in mind that you can do 6,000 charges. So that means going all the way down to zero, charging it up 6,000 times. Not many people are going to be doing that on a daily basis. So yes, it could stretch out to 15 years of actual usage, which is huge for anything really in this world. Okay, and then we're going to go here once again. This is the 300. This is the adorable little guy. Super powerful, portable, and it's everything you need to have a fun adventure. And it's so small and so light, you can put it just about anywhere, and it'll power a remarkable amount of things for a very long time. It's super quiet, super simple, super cheap, right? Once again, this thing was on sale today, 99 bucks. Something to think about. And then, of course, the Andes 600. The 600, this is the middle ground, but it's also, you call it the Goldilocks, the just right. The middle child, which is often misunderstood, but in this case, well understood, because I adore this thing. The potential of something like this at a larger campsite, at a work site, during an emergency, it's just small enough to be considered portable, but it is powerful enough to take care of a lot of needs, especially if you pair it with the 200 or even the 100 for that matter, if you pair it with one of these solar panels. So something like this, just fantastic and very, very capable. And then of course the solar panels, essentially free electricity, right? Electricity where you need it, as long as there's a little bit of sunshine, these things will be able to convert that to electricity because they are super efficient. Once again, they're able to take that light and up to 23% of it, they're able to push into these devices. More so than many, many, many other devices out there. And there you go. That covers everything here. Once again, super special sale day. Sale day. I almost got all the way through it without jumbling my words. What can I say? Not enough coffee. But I sincerely hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope this is informative. And I hope you guys are able to make use of the time given to you so you can click on these things below you and find the stuff that you want. Good luck to all of you. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you guys next time.